Hello everyone! So for the past week, I have been using iOS 13 on my main daily phone. And I wanted to give my review / impressions of it for the past week as a daily driver kind of device thing. And I feel like this is going to be slightly different than a lot of the other reviews out there that are very feature heavy with the main headline features and stuff. This is more like day-to-day use things that I've noticed. So let's get right into it. Alright, so the first thing and the most notable feature of iOS 13 is of course dark mode, which I have not turned off since I turned it on when I got it. I don't know, maybe it's the programmer in me, I just think everything should be dark mode all the time. Black is my happy color. But yeah, dark mode looks freaking great in every app that supports it. I am so in love with this feature. Now, I have an iPhone 7, which is not one of the OLED displays, so I can't really speak to how good that dark mode actually looks on an OLED display, but I can't imagine it looks worse, because the fundamental thing about OLED technology is that it only turns on the pixels that it actually needs, whereas an LCD is actually backlit and blocking off the light as best as it can, but there's still some leakage. So I'm really looking forward to having access to an iOS 13 running device with an OLED display that I can really test out in like the darkest dark of my bedroom or something when I'm like trying to fall asleep, because I feel like that is the true test of dark mode and ultimately is going to be the deciding factor between whether or not I get an iPhone with an OLED display or not. The next thing I noticed, because I type a lot, is that I kind of love the swipe feature of the keyboard being built in now, because like previously I was using the Google keyboard, which I love because I can search for GIFs, I can use the swipey feature, I can do all kinds of like search for emojis, but I can't do things like that feature where if you get an authorization code in your texts, it will auto-populate that and you can just tap it and push it in the field. That feature is amazing and I love it, because otherwise I'm trying to switch back between apps and trying to remember 6 or 8 digit codes and I'm like, just let me just do the thing. But the one thing I don't like about the swipey keyboard in iOS is that it does not, unlike the Google keyboard, capitalize the word I or I'm. And you can put a shortcut in, but if you do that, every time you type anything that starts with I am, it's gonna mess it up and make a whole other word out of it, and it's like, no. So I don't really love that. I don't like having to like push the capitalization button, and there is auto capitalization, but then it capitalizes every sentence and it feels like I'm writing a letter and I'm like, no, my texts need to be informal enough to like not have every word capitalized at the start of each sentence, but also they need to be formal enough where the I is capitalized, and that's a weird standard, but I'm sticking with it. Also, I don't love the need to switch to a totally separate keyboard in order to type emojis. I love that about the Google keyboard. I wish it was in this keyboard, because this way you have to like push the keyboard button and go to the emoji keyboard, and then you tap keyboard and it might go to your regular keyboard or it might go into the other 3 I have enabled. It's kind of cumbersome and it's a little weird. The nice thing is that it will suggest, like if you type LOL, it will give you a laughing emoji, but it's never the one I want. So I don't know exactly how to address that. I've been trying to not use the Google keyboard because it doesn't do a complete GIF search anyway, so it's not perfect for that. But it's just one of those usability things where I'm like, I really want to not feel like emojis are some super special thing that I'm doing that's weird. It's very much a part of our language, and I feel like there should just be an emoji button on that keyboard, and I'd love to see the feature that Google Keyboard has where you can search by keyword for an emoji. That's just priceless to me. macOS has it, there's no reason we can't do it on the iPhone. The next thing I noticed, and this is really kind of one of those weird things that I wish I could go back in time like 10 minutes on this particular thing. So there's a new version of reminders that comes with iOS 13, and I was very excited about it because there's a lot of cool features with it and everything. Like the ability to, when you're messaging someone, remind you of something. That's super useful for like when I'm texting my therapist or something, but that's another story. Anyway, it's super useful because I'll be like, oh right, the next time I talk to this person I gotta talk to them about this, but I don't want to like, that sort of reminder is great. The app itself is like way better. It's just, so it requires you to do an update in the app to like upgrade your data to the new version of reminders, which is fine, whatever, except that I have my reminders synchronized across macOS and iOS. So you need to have them both upgraded and both capable of handling those upgrades, and the upgrade for macOS is not available until next month. So now that I've done this upgrade on my phone, there's no way to go back and no way to access my reminders on my Mac. So it's just my phone that has my reminders on it. And that's kind of a real problem because I use them across both of those devices. And this gets into my larger problem with the way that Mac and iOS handle reminders. If I mark something completed, it should be marked completed across every device. And that's not what happens. And I can't tell you if that's fixed in iOS 13 because I can't even use the reminders on my Mac at this point. The other annoying thing is that when I did this data upgrade to my reminders, it wiped out all of them at first, then half of them came back randomly, and then eventually they all came back. And that was really weird. Like, I had no expectation that that was going to come back. I had no idea when it would be back. I had no control over it, no visibility. It's that classic Apple thing where it will just work or it will not. And that's super not comfortable to me as a programmer. Like, I need to know what is happening to my data. I need to feel as if I have control over it, even if I don't. And this is the real problem because, like, Amanda uses reminders the same way that I do, but way, way, way more of them. And Amanda cannot keep track of 50 reminders that she has saved in her phone if they all just disappear and never come back magically like mine did. That's a real risk. And they're not even synchronized to her Mac, so she can't access them at all during this period. I just feel like Apple should probably have held off on this release until it was available on macOS because their whole thing is the integration of things, and I can't do that for a month because they're sitting on this macOS update, which obviously needs more time, but just slow down the iOS release for just this feature. Or do what a lot of other places and app stores do and just make this feature something that can be upgraded without updating the entire operating system. Which unfortunately is not super easy with reminders in particular because it ties into the system location services and stuff like that, so I understand the technical challenges, but from the perspective of an average user, my reminders disappeared when I updated and don't work on my Mac. That's not good. But once they are working across all those devices, I really am hoping that the Mark as completed button will activate that setting across all of my devices. That would be super great because, like, it's really irritating getting the same reminder twice. Like, I'll mark it completed on my Mac and then I'll go back to my phone an hour later and there's 12 reminders on there that I've already checked off, and I'm like, why do I even have these? The next thing I want to talk about is the Health app, and I think that the Health app is actually one day going to be something really, really awesome, but what I don't love is that you can't do manual data entry for certain things. Like, I'm a trans woman, I take HRT. I cannot put in my own medications. It has to be pulled from my medical records, which none of the places I go support Apple's health stuff, so I can't put in my own medications? Like, that's really weird. Why is that a thing? Like, it lets you put in your medications on your medical ID in the emergency section, but it doesn't carry those over to your medication section of your Health app. And I'm like, well, then why? What? It's weird. Like, the Health app is a really cool idea, but it does not yet work. And that's super irritating because I actually am willing to give my data to this app that's really sensitive, and it won't let me do it. It's just a little weird. The other thing, and this is kind of a thing that only affects trans women, it will let me track my cycle, but it will not properly account for it if there's not flow, which there will never be because I don't have a uterus, but I do definitely get a period every month, so I'm like, I guess I can't use this, which I'm gonna try and see how it goes, but I don't think it's gonna work properly, and I'm a little annoyed about that. Like, am I gonna have to lie and say I have, like, flow? Like, that's a little weird because then I'm just lying to my cycle tracker, which feels like it defeats the entire point. Again, I recognize that this is probably a problem exclusive to trans women, but Apple is so inclusive about so many other things that I'm like, why is this a thing that they haven't accounted for? But I will say it is not just Apple, because no period tracker I've ever found accounts for my particular situation. And I understand, like, I don't have the standard equipment for it, and a lot of trans women don't end up getting periods, but I do. So that's a thing. More on the subject of the health app, there's actually not a way that's easy that I've found to search the App Store for apps that actually put data into the health app. And I feel like if they're trying to push for this to be a thing, they need to make it easier for me to find apps that actually work with it. I use MediSafe to track my medications, and it has integration with the health app, but it only goes one direction. It only pulls data out. And I'm like, but there's a medication section, and you're an app that tracks medications. Come on, you know? Like, it's one of those things where I feel like if Apple doesn't actually encourage developers to actually use the app, they won't do it. And I think a large part of that might be because it's impossible to find apps that actually work with the health app, at least as far as I can tell, and I'm a fairly advanced user. I feel like anyone who sees that is going to be like, why do I need this app? It doesn't work. That being said, it is super cool to be able to automatically import all of my blood test results. The health app got a little confused because previous data had the male range and now it has the female range, so it's kind of confused a little bit. But that's okay, I can manage that myself. It's actually kind of making me a little irritated though, because I took the time to make a Google Sheet with all charts and everything, and Apple just does that. Thanks. Well, I like my charts better, thank you very much. So the next thing I want to talk about is a usability thing. So both the control center and the home screen still only let you operate in a linear array. They don't let you skip spaces, which is so frustrating to a lot of Android users in particular who like having their layout a particular way, who maybe want their background to show through a little bit more, so they put the apps on the outside. There's a lot of use cases, and there's really no technical reason why it can't be done, and I don't understand why Apple doesn't want that for their users, because I guess it's just not a thing most people really, really want, but it'd be so easy to implement, and I don't know why they don't just do it. They've also changed the way that you delete apps, so they are moving away from force touch, which is when you would push hard on the screen, mostly because most people feel like it's not something you should do with a touchscreen, which is actually a good bit of training for people, but also because the screens had to be thicker and the manufacturing process was more complicated and things. It's just a feature most people don't even know exists. I like it a lot. I feel like it's really useful for some situations, but now the long press, when you hover on an app, gives you a couple of options. It gives you the share option, which used to be a force touch option, and it gives you the rearrange apps button, which is how you get the wiggle going now, and that's when you get the delete button. So it's adding an extra step, which is a little annoying because I have to tap an extra thing, but it also makes it more likely that I'll not accidentally remove an app in my pocket or something, so I guess it's okay. Either way, force touch is dying, dead, gone, and they're not going to be doing it anymore, so it makes sense that they'd be changing the UI to match that a little bit. I miss it. It was kind of nice. Plus, I felt like a wizard. I'd take your phone and boop, you didn't even know it could do that, did you? And, well, I need to get over that, at least according to my therapist. One thing I really, 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 really love is that the volume sliders are different, and thank God, because they were so annoying in the previous version. I feel like we started out with a really annoying volume indicator where it was a block in the middle of the screen. Then we went to later versions of iOS where it was just one bar, and that was great. And now we had this semi-translucent box that took up the entire screen and you couldn't dismiss, so it was in the way of everything. And a lot of apps like Netflix and YouTube got around this by moving their own volume slider and just having it up here. But iOS finally 13 has put them subtly to the side. It is so nice. The ringer one goes up top. So simple, but so necessary, because it was driving me crazy. It would just be in the way. I'm trying to do stuff, you know? Listen, I don't care how good Apple Maps gets. I am not going to use it. It's just that simple. Apple needs to stop caring about this, or make it have features that literally no other map provider has, and that's what they're trying to do with some of the major cities. And maybe I'll try that out the next time I'm in Manhattan, but I'm I am in the woods. I need an app that works. That would be great. The integration with the operating system is a lot nicer though, so I'm I kind of like that, but it's still Apple Maps and I can't rely on it. It's just that simple. Like, I'll use Waze and Google because I know that they're likely to get me to my destination. Apple Maps has steered me wrong many times, and I have learned not to use Apple Maps. It's just one of those things where if it's not ready on day one, nobody's going to start using it. And maybe I should try that for a week just to see if I actually like Apple Maps and can, like, get over it. But yeah, you know what? I think I will do that. That'll be a future video. I'm going to use Apple Maps for the next week or 3 and see if I die. I'll let you know. I really like that the Find My app, which is kind of a really terrible name for an app, but they're trying to combine Find Friends with Find My iPhone. Okay, and it is more than your iPhone now. It's your earpods come in there, your iPad, your MacBook, all that stuff shows up in there, and your friends. It's a little weird to combine those two things, but I like some of the features. Like, previously I could set up an alert for when Amanda left the house, and Amanda would have no idea that I had set this up, but it would alert me when Amanda left the house. And that's not really okay privacy-wise, because, like, yes, Amanda is sharing their location with me all the time, but I feel like they should know when I have an alert set up when I'm geofencing them. In iOS 13, that happens. And it adds the option to let me tell Amanda when I'm leaving work, when I'm arriving home, things like that, automatically every time. That's something I've wanted for a long time, and it'll make me feel a lot better knowing that I don't have to tell Amanda, hey, I just left work. It will just show up on her phone. Another thing I really love is that when I click the share button, it gives me the option to automatically text people that I frequently do this kind of stuff with, so in this case Amanda, which is awesome because it just saves me an extra step. I don't have to type in Amanda's name. I can just be like, yeah, message it to Amanda. That's exactly what I plan to do. Thank you. It's like Siri suggestions in your share, which is kind of creepy sometimes, but also like really useful because I'm like, I don't need extra steps involved in sharing something. In that vein, there's actually in the details section of the chat with whoever you're talking with, there's actually now a section for links, which is great because I cannot tell you the number of times that I've been talking about something with somebody and I want to go find that link and the search doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So if it's a link, I can find it in the links section. Same way I did with photos, which I also love doing because I'm like, where was that photo? Oh, I was talking to this person about it. Oh, here it is. I can do that with links now, and that is so convenient. I love that. It's a silly little feature, but it's great. I also tried out the Memoji stuff. It's got a lot more options than I would expect necessarily, but it's so clearly designed for someone who has one of the front-facing cameras. Like, it's trying to whet my palette with this, and honestly, it's kind of working. It's kind of cool being able to create an avatar, play around with your face and stuff, change hair colors. You know, it's fun, but it's really just kind of a waste of time. The stickers in particular are not super great, but I think it's really cool because you can try out Memoji without necessarily having the front-facing camera that they want you to have, which honestly is probably a good thing marketing-wise because, like, it is making me like, oh, I wish I had the camera so I could really do it. Yeah, I don't know, silly little thing, but I had fun playing around with it. Another thing that I want to say that has really not much to do with iOS or my iPhone 7 is that, yes, I am aware that the iPhone 10 is called the iPhone 10 and not the iPhone X, and same with the XR and the XS and the XS Max. I don't care. I'm gonna call it the X. Even though I love Roman numerals, that's just what that phone is called. I'm sorry, Apple, it's an iPhone X. Get over it. Everyone called it macOS X. They didn't call it macOS 10. Like, no, that's not what they called it. I'm sorry, it's an X. Another thing that I have, like, not so great feelings about is the App Store's, like, update process. I really like the interface before better, but they're trying to let people, like, just turn on the automatic updates and forget about it, which is great, unless you want something that came out 10 minutes ago and you need to, like, refresh, and it's just an extra step, which I'm like, for most people this doesn't matter, but for me this is a problem, and I don't know how I feel about this. But yeah, that's everything I experienced with my first week running iOS 13 on my iPhone 7. And I gotta say, the other thing that's really great is that I haven't really encountered any things that have broken in the OS release, which has definitely happened before. That happened to me with iOS 12 and Pokemon Go with the Bluetooth stuff, or maybe it was 11, I don't know, it was a while ago. Either way, nothing broke, which is really great. And I think that's one of the testaments to how solid the actual testing is at Apple. And I really think that it's a good release. I think there's some things that could be improved. There's definitely some features I'd like to see. Some things I'd like to see go away, but you know what? As an operating system release for a phone, I think this is a pretty solid one, and I'm really happy with it so far. And I'm obviously going to keep using it because there's no way to downgrade, which is actually a complaint I have about Apple, but that's another story. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way my phone is performing on iOS 13. I haven't really noticed any battery difference, but my phone's battery is also really not doing so great. So I'm kind of wondering if I'm going to have to replace the battery or if I want to just spring for the new phone. We will see. But for now, my iPhone 7 is running iOS 13 and I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, I guess that's my review. And that is all for this video. I'll be back again next week with another video that I hope you'll find interesting. Until then, stay curious.